Hi, this is Julie. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Grow Your Occupancy podcast as much as I did. I welcome Christa Daniello. She is the Vice President of Sales at the Osborn in Rye, New York. It is a life care community. And Mona Hilton, who is the owner, founder of Advantage Anywhere software. It's a very interesting conversation. We talked about quite a few things. Christa has been in her position for 28 years. So we talk about retention. We can learn something from Christa's passion for what she does, but really picking her brain around initial connections and the importance of connecting with our new leads, regardless of the outcome, tracking those metrics, the personal connection, and then the importance of the relationship that Christa and Mona have specifically around automation and how Christa uses Advantage Anywhere in this instance in adding automation so that her sales team can focus in on the human connection of picking up the phone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Grow Your Occupancy podcast. We'd like to thank Advantage Anywhere for sponsoring this episode of the Grow Your Occupancy podcast. At Advantage Anywhere, we understand senior living communities. Our customizable CRM and automation system is designed to help you convert more leads into move-ins faster, easier, and with less manual effort. With personalized follow-up automations, your team can focus on what matters most, spending time with prospects to get more move-ins. Visit www.advantageanywhere.com to see how we can help you get more move-ins with less stress. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Grow Your Occupancy podcast. I'm Julie Podewitz, and I am really pleased to be talking with two very interesting, very knowledgeable women today. We've got Mona Hilton with Advantage Anywhere and Christa Daniello, who is the Vice President of Sales at the Osborn in beautiful Rye, New York. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness, my pleasure. Christa, first of all, it looks your background for anybody watching, her background looks like a picture perfect movie set, and that is the Osborn behind you, right?
That absolutely is. You can see the tower right behind me, although it's not a real picture right now. It's actually an actual picture of our beautiful 56-acre campus.
Well, tell us a little bit more. That's what I was going to ask you. Tell us about the Osborn.
Absolutely. So I'm going into my 28th year here at the Osborn.
Wow.
And yeah, so I can tell you that I love it here, as you can tell, for being somewhere 28 years. But the Osborn is this beautiful 56-acre campus in Rye, New York, that is what they call now a continuum of care, or a life care community, known before as continuing care retirement communities. They have legally changed that name now, right, as far as leading age is concerned. And what that really means is that we have all of the different residential offerings here on one campus. So you can come in as independent living, where we have 148 apartments and 40 houses on our property. Then we have another building with 97 assisted living apartments. We have a separate memory care unit that's award-winning. And then we also have a skilled nursing, Medicare certified pavilion, which has both long-term and short-term rehabilitation. We have an outpatient rehab program, and we even have two home care agencies, one licensed in New York and one licensed in Connecticut. So when I say full continuum, I mean a very full continuum.
Wow, no doubt. And you said 54 acres.
56 acres.
56. I don't want
Yeah.
to have any
And a
acres.
certified arboretum.
It absolutely, from the picture, it absolutely looks gorgeous. Interesting. When did When was the CCRC designation changed to life care?
Oh, let's see. I forget how many years, if it was sometime around COVID, I think it was.
Okay, yeah,
Because for a very long time, I think it really came from a lot of the seniors and sort of a brainstorming group that Leading Age put together to really determine, what do people want these communities to be called?
got
And,
it.
that's sort of what they came up with. So,
Mm-hmm, makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah. So you're there 28 years. Like you said, you must love what you do.
Yes.
What is it you like about it?
I love, not even like, I love the people. I love the residents. I love meeting the people who are prospective or thinking about becoming residents. I love their stories. They have been the leaders and the pillars of our community, of our world. Their stories fascinate me. I become friends with them. I learn about their families. It's, I think what I like about being here, it's not like when you sell a product. I don't even believe in selling, and we'll talk about this a little later. It's like you're living with people on this campus and we're all one big family
Mm-hmm,
because you're really working where people are living
right.
and we spend a lot of time together. And I think that's the thing that sticks with me the most. And that's what I feel like I have about 50 grandmas and about 80 grand, or this at this day and age, I don't know, it's more like my parents now, but I feel like we're just one big extended family. And that's
Sure.
truly what I love about this.
Well, it sounds to me like you've got that you have natural curiosity.
Yes.
That's something that I think we can tap into that, but it's to grow that skill. But I think people are sort of born with certain levels of natural curiosity. And to your point, and let me ask a little bit about that in just a second, because I did want to ask you about when you said I'm not selling. I will talk a little bit about that, which I want to. But Mona, tell us a little bit about Advantage Anywhere.
Yes, Advantage Anywhere is strictly for sales, senior living. So it's lead to lease and everything that goes with it. So part of that, of course, is CRM. There's marketing automation. There's property tracking. There's video, email, and all the automation that turns basically a lead into a tour, and then all the sales follow up as well. So it's everything that we need for senior living. That's kind of our phrase as to what happens there.
I'm
And
gonna
then you're doing
second that
knowledge.
because I use Advantage and I absolutely love it.
Oh, what I was going to ask you. So you're a life care community, and I wanted to pick your brain about so many things. We only have, 15 minutes, but you're, I'm going to jump to assume that the decision-making process or your sales cycle, if you will, is longer in life care than straight rental. And
Mhm.
you're nodding your head. Okay.
Absolutely.
Um, your so maybe you'll answer the question of why did you choose Advantage Anywhere, why you like it, what it does for you. If we could go to wrap that into something that's been on my mind, and I just got back from two conferences, and this was brought up both times. It's about the new lead coming, stepping into the funnel, if you will, most often digitally, right? And needing to make a connection with them before we can go any further. So that attempt to connect it to reach people and pre-tour, that entire process pre-tour. Um, can you, seems to be a continued challenge because so many leads come to us digitally, Krista. Tell us what you're about at the Osborn, how you address this, how much of a challenge it is, ways.
Always a challenge, always
Yeah.
a challenge. And I think, for any of us who've been in this industry for a long time, we've seen a lot of changes in the industry. When I started here, over 27 years ago, people came in younger and they came in quicker. Now you see a sales cycle for
Mm-hmm.
independent living, especially for an entry fee type of life care community rather than a rental community, and they are very different with very different life cycles. You see that time frame nationally is between 18 and 24 months. That is a long time.
It
And
is.
that's from start to finish, meaning they might have inquired with you even longer than that, but the time you're really talking to them, really developing the relationship and then moving in is between 18 to 24 months. So going back to your original question, which was, okay, so what do you do with these inquiries? I think what my sales staff and my goal is always how do we get them to pick up the phone or get them to want to talk to us? Because it's really easy if you think about it, sitting behind a computer and just asking for information. So what we want to do is we want to do two things. We want to get them, first of all, directed to our website, which has a lot of really relevant information. What you want to do before they come is you want to give them relevant information, maybe not even so much about selling your community, but things to help them to make a decision about the things in their life that they're looking at. And maybe it's, can I help you with, thinking about downsizing because it could take 2 years to do that? Can I help you with, things like real estate? There might be people I can refer you to. We're going to have an event about that. But I think at the end of the day, the goal of every digital inquiry is to get them to pick up the phone. If there is a phone number that is attached to that, I will tell you that I always tell my staff to call because it's really truly about developing relationship. It's not about getting on the phone and selling. And there is never a one size fits all. You have got to get to know each client and you need to meet them where they are at that time. And
Right.
not everybody is at the same place.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
can tell you this, when we then sort of bring advantage back into it, they're sort of like your partner, your virtual partner, because they have the ability to do email automations. So for instance, if somebody inquires and they do not want me to contact them, and they say, please don't call me. I will let you know when I'm ready. We've set up an automation to go out over 16 months to people. That's just informational, not even about the Osborn. People love that because we have now become their experts in something. So it's how do we stay top of mind without badgering people about moving in? How can we get you to remember us in 5, 6, 7 months from now? And
Hmm.
think about picking up the phone now at that point to talk to us. And I think that that's about giving people relevant information. Again, meeting them where they are.
Mhm.
And Advantage helps us do that in many ways. For instance, instead of a static email, I can do a video. And I can say, hi, this is Christa. You inquired. I just want to let you know. I'd love to talk to you. Even if you have questions not related to the Osborn, I have a lot of information. We have the automation emails. They automatically get all of the information from website inquiries. There's nobody sitting there having to key it in, which
Right.
is huge. It
Yeah.
allows my salespeople to do what they want to do. So I think you can never negate the importance of a CRM partner that can do all of those things.
Mhm. You mentioned, so you and your staff, your team are focusing on the human component, and connecting with someone on the phone, understanding, look, the average is, and we don't want to put assumptions on anyone, but 18 to 24 months, it's likely not today. So the phone call is about meeting someone literally and
Yes.
seeking to understand, leaning in with curiosity and connection, making that connection, starting that relationship. The words,
Absolutely.
emphasis on starting. But you can't do that until you actually reach someone by phone. You leave a lot of that meaning what can be automated, what can be done, it can be personalized too. And I'm sure, Mona, you're nodding your head, right? To, in your case, Advantage Anywhere.
Correct.
Yeah.
Along with other things. So I think that what we will do is we'll have, if we have an informational event coming up, that's not a sales event. I just did one last week called Going from Overwhelmed to Overjoyed, because so many people we know are, thinking about selling their homes. What do I do with all my stuff? I have 50 years worth of stuff in my basement. So, I'll send out a personal invite to those people in the system and say, hey, we're sponsoring this event. Why don't you come? That allows us then another opportunity to get to meet them in person, to get to know a little bit about them. And then we can personalize maybe some of those emails and those interactions a little bit better. Because again, I'm going to tell you that especially with seniors in this business, it's about personalizing. You really have to personalize everything.
You have so many questions. One is, you said something and I jotted it down. You said you're sending a lot of information, not necessarily even about the Osborn. We've become experts. So, and you also mentioned in this nurturing process that you set it up in this case with Mona and her team to be much more than a series of 3. You said up to 16 months of nurturing, which is incredible. What type of information is important to your prospects?
You know, I think people want to know, again, a lot of people don't understand. Here's a big one. People don't understand what Medicare covers. They don't understand, does insurance cover anything? How does my long-term care work? How does it work with the entry fee? Like, you really have to break it down. We've all been in this business. I've been in it for 28 years or over 30 years. You've been in this business a long time. Mona's been in the business. We understand it. The person who's emailing or contacting us for the first time, they don't know. It's really their first foray into this business. And they don't really understand, okay, if I have long-term care, what does it mean if I go into an independent living versus an assisted living? So it's really giving them pieces of advice to really understand, you know, what is the best thing for you personally to be looking at and to understand. So that's what we try to center our information around.
And then Mona, this is, I know you do things, Christa, to supplement, but this can all be kind of preset into Advantage Anywhere. This meaning, okay, at 1 month or 2 weeks or 6 months or whatever the timeline is, let's provide them this type of information. And that's all preset.
Right, that's correct. Yeah, and I think the automation can be preset to include all kinds of things like what, Chris was talking about, long-term assisted living, all of those things can be kind of set up so that they can go out in stages, as she's mentioned. So I think that's a really important that you reach them where they're at that point, the leads, the prospects, whatever they are.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. You mentioned video messaging. I'm a big proponent of video messaging. What type of response, Christa, do you get from or are you finding from sending video messages?
So it's really funny because for people who are directors, vice presidents, or what have you of sales, you will know that some of your sales team are comfortable with it. Some people are not. For me, I love it. I think it's personal. And I think the responses are great because it does seem really personal. Anybody can, again, sit behind a keyboard and write a general email, but I think it really takes some thought to really put out a video and to look and to sound sincere. Because again, that's really what it's about. You want to sound sincere. You want people to understand you really do care. And I've had really positive feedback. I mean, when it first came out right away, I said to Mona, you have to show me this because I love it. I mean, you can even use it to, for instance, I'll give you a for instance, you can go over and video a apartment and say, hey, I just wanted to show you the view. It's so nice to see you. Here I am on the sunny balcony. I just figured I'd send you an email so you can see what it's like at sunset today.
Oh, I love that.
You know, how many systems can do that? So I love that component, and I think it's a wonderful add-on that they've been able to offer to their clients.
Oh, well, so you can do the video straight through the CRM.
Yes,
Oh.
isn't that great?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. There are different, there are other, platforms that provide that, but it sounds like Mona, yours is
It's
right
built directly in. And one thing that I wanted to mention that Krista mentioned is that salespeople are really good at talking to people, but when it gets in front of a camera, they get all kind of scared. And it takes a few times of doing that, but after a while, you just start talking and you don't worry about it. We've noticed across the board about 65% click-through rates when you have a video included. So when you get anything from me, it always has a video in there because people watch. They want to know what's going on.
I did notice that too. So when you send a message with video, it's 65% more likely or 65% open rate in your
Click through,
experience
yes.
to click through.
Mhm.
Yeah. Stats don't lie, numbers don't lie, right? And so Krista, going back to the ever challenging, we need to reach the prospects or the leads, as I call them, leads coming in until you make a connection. I have a couple questions. One is that a metric that is tracked in the system? Like, oh, 100 leads came in, and regardless of the outcome, we were able to at least make a connection with, 85 of them this month. Is that a number that you track? Or
Yeah.
percentage?
Sorry,
Mhm.
it wouldn't allow me to unmute myself. 100%. I mean, all that is tracked. You track your leads. That's another incredible thing that I'll say that I've been able to accomplish with Advantage. I think, you really have to have an ongoing relationship with the CRM that you're using, meaning that you really need to have a team that you can talk to and even personalize reports. And I've really been able to do that. So I have a personal report that I had been able to create with Mona and her team, which has been wonderful. That I think now, Mona, right? You use it a lot of other places, but in one report, I'm able to track the leads, what level of care they're coming into, the leads to qualified leads, then the qualified leads to tour, the qualified tours to move in. So all of those little components are really important to track, especially I look at a qualified lead to a tour, because at the end of the day, you want them to pick up the phone. You will always find somebody picking up the phone statistically is more likely to really be interested in your community and to come. And then, of course, that's followed by the person who's going to come in for the tour. So now it's about how do we get all those steps ahead of time and get them in, because we track all of it.
I love it. What is your, like, maybe trending, in any given maybe 6 months period, that connection rate? Like you said, regardless of the outcome, the connection rate, what are you looking at?
So just explain to me what you want to know with regard to connection rate. Are you
So
meaning that?
like lead to someone I talked to. So the new lead to connection.
I would say the first thing I look at is the qualified lead. So I would say a qualified lead to connection and qualified lead to a tour, we're over 50%, which is really, really high. When you're at a community, I think the one thing you're going to find is we are a life care community and entry fee, obviously. Not life lease. We all know that's a different, right? Life care, but we're a type C. So people have to financially qualify to come in here. I mean, you have to be able to put down a certain amount of money when you come in and then pay a monthly. So
Right.
you have to qualify. So the first thing you're going to look at, you don't want your salespeople to be wasting their time making calls, sending emails to people who aren't qualified. So the
Right.
number one thing is to figure out if it's a qualified lead.
Okay, so that was my question. When you say qualified, in your case, you're speaking, is it financially viable for this
Correct.
person? But you've still made a connection. You've talked to
Correct.
them or right. So your connection rate is higher than 50%.
Yes. I'll give you a great, for instance, I had somebody over the weekend who emailed. I emailed back on Monday. She asked for, everybody always asks for pricing.
Right.
Salespeople are afraid to give out pricing. I'm like, you can't be afraid to send out your pricing. Your pricing is your pricing. If somebody's adamant about a price, you send them a price, because they may right away know, oh my God, I can't afford it. However, you have a lot of people say, oh, I don't think I can afford this, but you want to talk to them more. So I said to her, okay, no problem. I can send you the price, but why don't you give me a call? I can go over a few more pieces of information. She emailed me back, asked for another piece of information. And then I said, why don't you give me your phone number? Tell me a time that's good for you. Usually if you do that and you say, let me know a time for you that works, I'd be happy to give you a call. And they do. They'll give you a call back. They may not want to give out their phone number, but either way, if you say, or tell me what time works, I'll be available. Here's my phone number. So sometimes people are hesitant to give out their phone number. Well, then just say, hey, here's my personal number. give me a call and I'll be happy to talk to you at a time that's convenient for you. So you give them the options, and you give them sort of the authority to make those choices on their own.
Great advice, sort of almost setting an appointment, you get a little bit more
Correct.
of a commitment. I'll call you at 4 o'clock.
Yep.
That's great. That's great. Mona, I know you work with thousands of people in this industry, and you've worked with other verticals too. What piece of advice would you give a salesperson in senior living based on maybe some of the challenges that you see? What's one piece of advice?
Wow, that's a great question. There's so many things I could talk about, but I think it comes down to reaching out immediately to your leads. You know the 5-minute rule that I've always talked about, which is if you contact your web leads within 5 minutes of them reaching out to you, you're 100 times more likely to reach them, engage them, and eventually sell to them than if you wait 30 minutes. So for me, it makes sure that you can engage with them right away. And I know that, someone falls at 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever, you are not available to reach out to them. And that's why the automation becomes handy, so that you can do it on behalf of Christa or whoever that is. So it doesn't look like, you can even include videos as part of that. So they don't feel like they're in the middle of the night, they're not gonna get anyone human from you. So that's one way to do it. Probably my best piece of advice.
Oh, it's great advice. It's great advice. And Christa, you've given great advice too. Any last bit of takeaway for someone listening? Like, what's one thing that your team does that you're like, yes, and you would give advice to everyone?
A little off of, what we were talking about in the beginning, which is, how do you get them before you get them? I say that, the first time somebody picks up the phone, because you do notice that seniors still like to pick up the phone. They want that human contact. Sometimes they're in a crisis, they're really lost at that time. And do not take for granted that person who answers your phone is probably one of the most important staff members at your community. That is the first human to human contact. And I always say, if I hear, we actually record all our calls, and I will bring my staff in. If I ever hear anybody doing their keyboards, or they're not paying attention, or they don't let somebody else answer before the next question, I get very upset. I always say, talk to them like you're talking to a family member. Have a conversation. I do not want you sitting there with one piece of paper and 5 questions. Have it in a conversational way. If you ask somebody one question, they'll tell you 5 different things about themselves. So what I would say is allow the space to breathe, and make sure that the person who answers your phone is well trained and is really good about talking to people. That is a key.
Well, I can attest when we hopped on the podcast today, Christa and I have never met, and I love meeting people who serve in this business and other businesses too. And I said, "Did you have any questions?" And she said, "I'd like to learn a little bit about you." And I have to tell you, that's not typical. It's not typical, and very flattering. It feels good. We all like to talk a little bit about ourselves, right? Especially to someone who's listening and cares and seeking to understand. Thank you so much, Mona Hilton, Advantage Anywhere, Christa Daniello, Vice President of Sales at the Osborn in beautiful, beautiful Rye, New York. Thank you both so much for talking with me today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Great to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you all for listening and waiting to the very end. If you'd like to learn more about Advantage Anywhere, you can reach Mona at AdvantageAnywhere.com. Is that right? All right. Awesome. Thank you all very much again. We'll talk to you on the next episode of the Grow Your Occupancy podcast. We'd like to thank Advantage Anywhere for sponsoring this episode of the Grow Your Occupancy podcast. At Advantage Anywhere, we understand senior living communities. Our customizable CRM and automation system is designed to help you convert more leads into move-ins faster, easier, and with less manual effort. With personalized follow-up automations, your team can focus on what matters most: spending time with prospects to get more move-ins. Visit www.advantageanywhere.com to see how we can help you get more move-ins with less stress.